10 slides. You can count them. You'll know when we're done. We've all had a lot of technical discussions over the last 2 days, so I'm going to keep this really simple. And I know you've heard a lot about the GHG protocol, so I'm not going to go into the details of the requirements. I'm really going to just focus on looking out into the future. What are our plans now that our standards are being finalized? So I'm just going to give you a quick update on our standard, and then just talk about our vision and objectives for the future, and give you some details about some work that we're currently doing to support the standards, and work that we'll be doing out and over the next year or two. So I'm trying out some new messaging here. We've been rethinking what our vision and objectives are for the GHG protocol. So what are for all the GHG protocol work, which you know is a partnership of WRI and WBCSD, is that we're trying to enable transformative corporate greenhouse gas measurement and management, I should also say reporting practices to grow a low carbon economy. This is our standards and guidance that we've already completed. And our core purpose is to develop international carbon management standards and tools and promote their broad adoption worldwide. So specifically, I'm going to just talk mainly about our product standard, but you also know that we're in the process of developing a Scope 3 standard for corporate value chains that will be coming out with the product standard. For the product standard, the objectives that we've defined is really to become the international standard for carbon footprint measurement and reporting, and to help make product footprinting for mainstream business practice, to help companies make good business decisions, and to help establish a common language and understanding of carbon footprints. So just to tell you where we are in the process, about a week ago, we sent out a proposed final list of requirements for both the product standard and the Scope 3 standard to our steering committee, our technical working group members, and all the companies that road tested the standards. And we're have just a 1 week comment period on those, just to get some final approval of this set of requirements. Once we're assuming that the feedback will be positive, we have only been hearing positive things so far, but we have a few more days of that process. So assuming we can finalize those requirements in the next week or two, we'll be posting those publicly, and then you can therefore go ahead and implement the standard. What won't be available yet is the guidance that goes with it, which is very detailed and provides a lot of useful information. That's going to take us the next month or so to make the revisions to the standards, and then we need to do the design and layout of the publications, send them to the printer, and those won't be available until September. So as we're finalizing the standards, we're currently developing tools and guidance to support the standards and really reduce the barriers to implementation. So when we launch the standards, we'll be doing some workshops around them to train people on the standards. These will be short workshops, but later next year, we'll also have much more detailed workshops that we'll be doing around the world, and hopefully be moving to partnering with other organizations in different countries to certify them as trainers and have more train-the-trainer approach, so that we can really create some economies of scale and have lots of trainers available worldwide to teach people about the standards. We're also developing some simple tools like sample supplier letters that you could send to a supplier if you want to request some data from them to complete a Scope 3 or a product inventory. And it's just a letter that helps them understand what the task you're doing is and why you want them to respond and provide you with data. And then we'll also be working soon on trying to standardize some data collection templates that will be freely available that you could customize if you need to, or use them to send to suppliers. We know there's a lot of companies that are new to carbon product footprinting need a lot of help on identifying what secondary data sources are out there. So we're completing a list of those. We had a first version of that list for the road testing, and now we've been working with Best Foot Forward to come up with a more informative list that provides a lot of description about each of the data sets that are out there, so it will help companies make some quick decisions about what data would be best for their inventory. We've also been working with Qantas on an uncertainty calculation tool that will be available soon on our website. And then we're still developing a strategy on how we're going to make sure that product rules and sector guidance, when we say product rules, it's just a more generic term for product category rules, and sector guidance as well. How will we make sure in the future that those are developed in conformance with our standard? We don't plan on developing those on our own. We could never create the volume that need to be developed. So we're trying to create a system that would allow large economies of scale to get the sector guidance and product rules that are out there that's needed. One other effort we have is trying to build partnerships out there. Just like we did with the corporate standard, when the standard was finalized, we went out and worked with programs that could use the standard as part of their corporate inventory programs. So we want to start identifying programs out there that might be interested in adopting our standards and see how we can work with them, and that will help to really quickly achieve broad adoption of the standard. And we've already made some progress in this area, and there's at least 3 programs that should soon be announcing that they're adopting our standard. And then we also want to use this as a way to create consistency in the methodological approach, so it reduces the burden on companies. So if all these different programs, product footprinting programs around the world are using different methodologies, we know the burden that's going to create for companies. So we want to encourage all these programs to adopt, at a minimum, the same methodological approach, and hopefully they'll also be working to develop together PCRs. And then I just wanted to mention that in June 14th, 15th, and 16th, we're hosting a workshop in Washington, D.C. for organizations around the world that operate programs that use the corporate standard or maybe thinking about using the Scope 3 standard and the product standard. This is the 2nd annual workshop, but this one is really focusing more on the Scope 3 and the product standard, and we want to bring programs together to really exchange experience that they have operating programs, and then also get advice from them about how we can help inform their programs, provide them advice, what tools could we develop to assist them. And it's just a really good peer exchange opportunity. So I think we've talked to a few people here that work on programs. Some of you may already have seen an invitation, but if you work on a program and you may be interested in coming, let us know. So we've been thinking a little bit about how to support the development of PCRs. So we've come up with a list of activities that we may want to engage in, but we also hope that we could do this in partnership to really create more international harmonization on a PCR approach. So this is something that we've been discussing with the PCR Roundtable, and these are all activities we could do, or the Roundtable could do, or some other organization. So we want to develop some criteria to determine conformance with our standards. So this would just be just some specific technical criteria to know that a product inventory or a PCR is in conformance with our allocation approaches or our boundary decisions, things like that. Then we also need we may, on top of that, want to build some additional requirements just to ensure that a PCR is of high quality. And then we may, in addition to that, also need some guidance for verifiers on the process to complete a validation of the PCRs. So we know that to determine that this PCR is in conformance with our standard, because again, there's going to be a lot of PCRs out there. We don't think that we can do the validation of all of them ourselves, but we do want to ensure that they're in conformance with our standard. For companies that want to say that they've done an inventory with this PCR in conformance with our standard. And I should also just make it clear, you don't need a PCR to use our standard. Our standard is a standalone standard, and to be in conformance with it, all you need to do is meet the reporting requirements and report in conformance with the standard. But if you want to perform comparison through a product labeling program, if you want to use it for procurement purposes, when you're comparing one product to another, that's when we recommend the use of PCRs. And then we also think it would be helpful to have a clearinghouse out there to centralize the availability of PCRs. So just to let you know a little bit about our plans for our launch, we're going to have a series of launch events around the world. We'll definitely have 2 in the US, 1 on the East Coast, 1 on the West Coast, at least 2 in Europe. We haven't identified locations yet. 2 in China, at least 1 in India, possibly in Japan as well, and possibly in Brazil. The events will be a combination of a media event, but there'll also be the training workshops as a piece of that. They'll be open to anybody that's interested in attending, and the publications will be launched at these events. And that's all I really had to tell you. Great, I'm ahead of schedule.